All right, turning the music off so Lauren doesn't yell at me. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's so great to see all of you. I'm just looking down the list. I'm seeing some faces that I haven't seen since Jacksonville. Time has really flown since then. And speaking of time, we're exactly 6 days away from the day, October 4th, when the portal for the National STEM Challenge is going to open. So that's why we've gathered here today. We want to equip you with everything you might need to share this opportunity with learners in grades 6 through 12 who might want to enter a project in the National STEM Challenge. And we're going to hear from Paula Golden here in a little bit, too. We're going to talk a bit about outreach to business and industry or business and industry partners, what that can do for the challenge, but also a little bit of what that can do to you, for you. So today, that's going to be a little big picture of why events of the National STEM Challenge are so important. And then we're going to dive into all the details, give you the tools that you can use for empowering classroom educators, after-school providers, and others to share this challenge with students across the U.S. So let's start with the big picture first, as in why this type of challenge is so critical for engaging students with STEM. But before we do that, I do want to mention two quick things. The first is, in addition to our speakers, all of whom you're going to meet in a little bit, we also are joined by Meg Kilroy today, who's on Jenny and EXPLR, the National STEM Challenge team. She'll be talking with you in the chat. I also want to mention that down at the button, there's that little Q&A button down there, down the taskbar, that little Q&A button down there. If you have questions, if you want to talk back channel things, go ahead and put those in the chat. If you have any specific questions, put that in the Q&A tool. We promise every question will be answered. Depending on timing, some or all might be answered today in that session, but anything that isn't answered live in today's session, we will make sure to get to Jenny and Meg and team, and that will be in the follow-up email. So make sure you get those questions in the Q&A. You also can watch for questions that are submitted there. There's a little thumbs up button you can hit. If we can only get to a few questions, that'll give us a little bit of guidance on which ones we should go to. So before we get into sort of the details of the challenge, I want to start with someone who is familiar to all of you who joined us in Jacksonville, and some of you who didn't. You may have seen her on Ellen. You may have read about her countless national publications, TV and radio talk shows and podcasts. We're joined today by Dasia Taylor, and Dasia's kind of a celebrity. She's the inventor of stitches that change color when an infection is present. It's a potentially life-changing invention, and she invented these stitches when she was still in high school. Now 20 years old and on a pathway for figuring out what's next with her invention and her life, Dasia's also an undergraduate at the University of Iowa. Dasia's going to tell us a little bit about her thoughts about the National STEM Challenge and what it might have meant to her. So Dasia, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We almost didn't have you today, so we're so glad that you were able to make it at the last second. We were going to show a video, and everybody knows there's nothing worse than sitting on a Zoom watching videos. So I'm so thrilled that you're here with us today, Dasia. So that's my question for you. You did, I mean, truly groundbreaking and incredible work all on your own, really. So what I'm wondering is, I know that you've been working with Jenny and team, and you're one of the STEMbassadors, which I'm so excited about. So what would something like the National STEM Challenge have meant for you back when you were developing your solution?
Yeah, first of all, can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you great.
Epic.
Thanks, Dasia.
Awesome. So first and foremost, I am so excited to be with you guys today. I almost did not make it. You'd be surprised where I am hosting this Zoom right now. But I am just so grateful to be able to share space with you all and just explore a couple ideas around what the STEM challenge would have meant for me, because I was just like you when I was in high school, and I was just a curious kid who wanted an outlet for innovation specifically, and mine's just happened to be in STEM. So I did a bunch of science fairs, and I made it all the way to the Regeneron Science Talent Search my senior year. And something like the National STEM Challenge is so important for you guys because it just gives you another opportunity to explore that curious outlet, right? Like, you get to present a project, a STEM project, based on any sort of societal issue that you see fit and that you want to solve, whether that's innovation, whether that's research. Like, that's really important in our society, and we need more scientists, more innovators like you to take over the reins. So I was reminded of something. I just got back from a trip where I was playing with snakes and like reptiles and stuff. It was crazy. And on this trip, I was reminded that STEM education can change lives, but that STEM careers change the world. And so this is why this is very important for you guys to get involved in the National STEM Challenge, because you have the ability to change the world. It's literally in your hands right now. And so for me, I took what I could with all of the competitions that were available when I was your age, but it's nothing like having another opportunity on the table for you to grasp and just explore that outlet once more. So hats off to you guys. If you guys choose to join, you should totally join. This is for cool kids only. And so we're just super excited to have you be a part of this epic program, and hopefully it continues for years to come. So thank you so much.
What I always love about Dasia is that we couldn't write we couldn't write content better than what just sort of comes out. So Dasia, thank you so much. And if you're available to stick around and listen and chat with folks, please do so. But I know that you've got kind of a busy day today. So if you need to roll out, that's totally okay as well. It also kind of sets us off perfectly. You know, Jenny, I'm so excited to talk with you a little bit, and for folks to kind of hear a little bit more. For those of you who haven't met Jenny Bucos, she's an old and dear friend, and frankly, I think one of the smartest people working in STEM and STEM education today. And she has been working on initiatives that you've heard of before, like EXPLR Media, some really incredible things. But she and her partner Carrie Byron have been able to bring back something that we need, which is a national presence for this type of work and challenge. And I think my favorite thing, Jenny, is that this has sort of shifted from similar events in the past to kind of, posters about theory, which is still great, to really prototyped and iteratively designed actual solutions. Why was that kind of the shift for you?
Oh, wow, that's a question I haven't been asked before. I think because we want kids to tinker and use their hands and iterate and fail and reiterate. I mean, we have so much now with digital learning, and just our social lives are online. This idea of like physically using your hands to build and create and innovate and inspire, I think is so interesting. And for so many kids, they don't have that opportunity in school, just given like the resources at our fingertips, and literally at our fingertips. This is why community partners are so important here, to make sure that kids do have the opportunity to make, build, create. So that's one of the reasons. But quite frankly, this is what our future needs. And as Dasia said, like, you literally have the opportunity to change the world in your hands, and you don't have to be an adult to do that. 11-year-olds can do that, 12, 13. I mean, I don't like saying kids are the future. The kids are the now.
Yeah, and you mentioned community partners. In just a little bit, we're going to hear from the co-chair of the advisory council for this event, our friend Paula Golden. But before we do, I'd like to dig in a little bit to the challenge itself on the student side. And the first thing is, I noticed that originally there were some rules that said something about only original work and materials, and that sort of shifted over the last week or so, which I'm kind of excited about, because I love that iterative option. Why did that change?
A lot of it changed based on feedback from this community and communities that Meg had specifically been reaching out to. We understand that this time frame to submit a project is short, and we wanted to make sure that kids that had already had a project for another fair, another school project, something that they were working on, had time to submit their best work, the work that they're most proud of. Also, again, it's that iteration. Like, if you've tried something before and it didn't quite work, you have time to try it again and put it forward for consideration. So please know that the feedback that you had given us over the last month or two was listened to and incorporated. This is a community, very much so, and we do listen to every comment that comes in, and we try to be better for your kids.
I love that. And you know, the folks that are on this call really love having their fingerprints on things because they've got the insights, they've had the experience. So I'm so happy that those voices are being listened to. And we knew when we partnered with you originally that was going to be kind of how things worked out, because that's the way you work, Jenny. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the kind of the submission process. I know that the initial date for submissions is coming up here in just a few days on October 4th. If you haven't already, those of you listening, make sure that you go ahead and pre-register now. You can get your login created. You can send that pre-registration page out now. The earlier we do this, the more people that are going to be involved. And that's what we really want. We want this to be able to reach out and reach to as many students from all over this country as we possibly can. So Jenny, I know that there are 6 themes. Could you talk a little bit about those themes and why they were selected?
Sure. So the 6 themes are, and if you're writing notes down, don't worry, they're all on the website for you. They are environmental stewardship, future foods, health and medicine. So Dasia, that's what Dasia's representing for us, among other things, but that's specifically where you're the STEMbassador. Tech for good, space innovation, and powering the planet. In 20 years of working to create content for students, we also film with a lot of students. So we've heard climate crisis, climate emergency, sustainability. These are all things that kids are concerned about, and they all want to be solution seekers for. Health and medicine, if you look at the mental health crisis and the opioid crisis in this country, again, this is things I'm hearing from teenagers and preteens a lot. But we also looked at some of the big initiatives that both our federal government and our local governments are trying to tackle, and how youth can be part of that solution on both a local, national, and international level.
I love that, and what I really love about it is that they're themes that young people are concerned about. They're themes that young people are worried about and want to address. So I know that the submissions are kind of open-ended, which I love. We come from the STEM ecosystems, which is a very open-ended initiative. There are a couple of tight pieces, but most of it by design is very different. But I wonder if you could talk about what kind of an ideal submission might look like in one of these categories.
An ideal submission. Well, I'd say Dasia's brilliance was an ideal submission. The other one I like to talk about, I like to give examples of some of our STEMbassadors and the things that they did as students. Danielle Boyer would be another one. Danielle Boyer is an Ojibwe robotics engineer. And as a young girl, when she started a robotics club, she felt like she didn't belong. She was the only girl and she was the only Indigenous youth. And she quit because she didn't feel welcome. But her innovation was she makes robots. She now has a nonprofit called Every Kid Gets a Robot. So if you want a robot, look it up. She'll send it to you if you don't have the resources for it, and you build along with her. But her robot looks like a little falcon and it sits on your shoulder. Now the falcon obviously is an important symbol in her culture, but it listens and it translates into one of 20 Indigenous languages. So you have robotics, tech for good, but when it's translating, these are languages that are disappearing. So she's preserving her heritage and a disappearing language through technology. So I would absolutely put that in tech for good. And that's something that she thought up at like 12 years old. So again, the ability to change the world does not sit with just adults. And I like to think because students sort of don't have that filter and they think anything is possible, that's the level of like brilliance I want to see. And that brilliance does not know coast, it does not know boundary, it does not know community. It is in every classroom when we support kids and we support teachers to bring that out.
As a former linguistics undergrad, I've got to just spend the money and buy one of these myself. I need one that sits on a shelf and translates for me. That would be really incredible.
And it's like the cutest thing. Like, look her up. It's just like the most adorable little thing that sits on her shoulder.
Well, I know what I'm spending money that I don't have on shortly after this call. Jenny, I see a question in the chat, and for those of you here, if you can, try to go ahead and put those questions in the Q&A tool, because sometimes I miss them in the chat. But Luciano's asking, is there sort of like a distinguishment between grade levels for submissions in this year's event?
There is not. We do understand that high schoolers will come with more advanced, but the way we're scoring these projects is on innovation, passion for STEM, your ability to communicate your vision. So no, there is all one group, 6th through 12th grade. We will not know students' age when they come in. We will not know who they are. It'll all be blind judging. There is no photo, no personal identifiable information. They just come in a 3-page PDF and we review them that way. And you don't even have to use text. You can use sketches, you can use imagery, whatever it is that makes you communicate your idea and your vision in the way you best communicate. That is what we will take.
And we're going to hear a little bit more about those sort of adult opportunities like blind judging here in a couple of minutes after we hear from our friend Paula. Jenny, thank you so much. I'm sure I'm going to have more questions for you on this, but we're also going to talk again in a few minutes about sort of the adult and volunteer side. Before we do that, I'm very excited to introduce our longtime STEM ecosystem friend, Paula Golden. And, Paula, I wasn't going to introduce you this way, and I wish I had a picture ready, but Jenny was talking about future foods, which reminded me that when we were all together in Bay City, Michigan, Paula was up there on stage eating crickets and mealworms as a little bit of a competition and demonstration with Carrie Byron. So Paula's already had a little bit of involvement in this future foods world. But Paula, first of all, you're a busy person. So I'm curious, before we kind of get into your content, why it was important enough to you in your insanely busy schedule to not only volunteer for the advisory council, but to agree to co-chair it.
Can I say, because you guys asked? Ask and you shall receive, let me say this first of all. It is an honor to do this. And what I like about this so very much, and something that I want to convey to all who are listening, particularly those that are engaged in collaborative efforts with their ecosystems, is this is an incredible opportunity to have kids who have already done projects or whose projects are close to completion or have the insight is sufficiently baked, that they can put this in a national forum without the pressure of trying to come up with something in the next 4 days to 5 weeks. Okay. Now, this really means that every kid that's in an after-school program, a science fair of all these ages, and I'm really a call out to everybody on this call and to anyone else who's in your ecosystem. Just put the word out that any kid can do this. They can do it from their home. They don't have to congregate. It's an individual project. It can't be a team project. I want to point that out. And you can't go to URLs and put Google in there. But bottom line is that this is a chance for kids to reignite a project and a passion in a forum that is at a national level. This is huge. One of the things we do at Broadcom is we're very supportive, as you all know, of science fairs, code clubs, after school programs. And we look for opportunities for kids to take their project to another level. This is an easy breezy way for virtually every kid, as Jenny said, with just a couple of paragraphs or some artwork and prints on just several pieces of paper to upload that and put it into this national challenge. Now, why this is important for us is that every state will be bringing kids forward. The way the judging is going to be structured, and territory, and tribal, I believe the tribal lands as well. All of these and other special groups, homeschool, any kid in any environment will participate in this, and there will be a selection process that really ensures that all 50 states plus the territories plus everybody else gets to be represented in the final presentation of how this ultimately is played out. Now, with that in mind, there's also an opportunity to be in Washington, D.C. if you're in that the ultimate group that is selected to represent these various innovators, young innovators between the ages that are put out there. So with that in mind, now let me tell you why I'm on this call. Broadcom is a huge corporation, and we have lots of employees who have a pent-up demand in their hearts to participate. I really believe that one of the great things that we have in this country is a desire to participate. But as we all know, with businesses particularly, and big corporations, big organizations, people are busy. They don't have a lot of time. So what, again, makes this an opportunity for you in an ecosystem, at a science fair, at a school, an after-school program of any kind where you've got kids that you want to bring forward. You can go to your local business partners. Let's keep it to business and industry. You can go to them and say, look, here's an opportunity for your employees to very simply be a judge, on a blind random judging system that's very simple, and put in a very short period of time to feel good about yourself in a national endeavor. This is huge. And the sense of urgency there is because the competition, or the challenge, no competition, the challenge, bringing forward these challenge to bring forward your good ideas, kids, is going to close, what is it, like 8 o'clock Pacific time on the 12th of November. The judging really begins after that. So you have two kind of special moments. One is alert every kid to participate and get pre-registered. Number two, to take time to go meet with and contact local business and entities in your community. Now, what is the value to you? Now, granted, most of you need money, most of you need support, and some of you can't reach these businesses easily enough, and you feel somewhat intimidated by this. I have a strategy for you. First of all, the sense of urgency, and it's a national call to action. This is being supported by the Department of Education, other departments, the White House. We can't kind of reveal, but basically there's a lot of national import to this, which means you can go to a local business, big or small, and say, if your people participate in this, you'll get recognition at a national level. That recognition will be somewhere online, but you're able to say to them, your brand, your company, your people are showing their support for STEM at a time where the CHIPS and Science Act, the Infrastructure Act, all of these things are creating self-motivating reasons for businesses to be concerned. They need the workforce, and they need it now. And the sense of urgency in this country is keen for them, and you're giving them an opportunity to brand themselves as part of this, as part of the solution, by helping build up the workforce in this very simple, time-limited investment in having their employees judge projects for this nationwide endeavor. So I want you to see this as an opportunity that's very self-serving for you to get in the door with companies and industries that maybe you haven't been able to reach. Once you're in the door and once you've made a friend, there's an old saying, I think it was Winston Churchill who said, if you want to make a friend, ask him to do you a favor. I believe in that. If you can get in the door and ask them to participate in this national endeavor, you're in the door to talk to them about other things and to continue the cultivation of them and their enterprises as possible sponsors and supporters of things that matter to you in the local level. One more thought. For those of you that participate in a STEM ecosystem, a strategy I would have is to bring together school, after school, science fairs, science museums, all the people that are part of your kind of representative ecosystem, university, and ask them to bring forward one person who would be willing to sign on to a letter to make a request to get a company or an industry engaged. Make it a collective call to action. That will take off the company's concern that you're just trying to get in the door for yourself, even though truly you are in the long run. But the bottom line is you're creating a coalition call, a clarion call with a powerful group of STEM investors in your community. Okay. So anyway, anybody that wants to talk about strategies to reach out, I'm always available to do it. And I didn't just do this because Jeremy asked and Exan and Jenny, but really, truly, I believe this is an opportunity for every kid who's done a project in the last year or year and a half to throw that project back up on the wall and see, let's see what sticks.
What I love about what you're saying, Paula, is, we talk all the time in the STEM ecosystems about this concept of enlightened self-interest. And this is one of those rare times where that enlightened self-interest is working in 90 directions at once. This is a chance for you to bring forth an opportunity for the young people in your region.
Right.
This is
And
an
do it in a very
opportunity for
selfless
you to-
way. It's great.
Yeah, for you to have keys to meet and to gain new partners. And then, here's the other selfish angle that I'm thinking about here in Cleveland, right? Is, what I want really, really badly? I want a Cleveland area student to make it to DC, because
Thank
then
you very
I
much.
get to say, look at what the ecosystem effect has done for this region.
Wow.
Out of all of the nation's young people, 200 made it to DC, and one of those is from Cleveland, Ohio.
Well,
So
and again,
think about
because we
what
know that
offer.
because we know that they're going to make an effort to have representation from virtually every state, that possibility is very great. And that does give you, again, opportunity to follow up with companies, industries, ask them to celebrate that kid, throw parties for that kid, get around the notion that it isn't just a one-off.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paula. So Jenny, I'd like to, before we close, talk to you a little bit about this on the volunteer side. I saw a question kind of scroll through the chat, and I know that Meg answered it there. But are people allowed to volunteer to judge if they think there's a decent likelihood that students in their orbit have submitted projects?
Absolutely. There's just a question that says, please let us know if any students have submitted. And we will make sure through the magic of technology and data and automation that you are not paired with students in that community. We've asked what state you're in. That's the only identifier that we've sort of asked geographically as both the reviewer, and then we'll also have the school on the student end. So we'll just make sure we're not pairing you with that. In the same way that it's important that we have kids submitting from every state, because we are committed to bringing students from every state, every territory, BIE and DODEA, but we have to have submissions from them. So this is where you come in. We're also committed to making sure we have reviewers from all of those places. And to date, we have 36 states represented. So that's pretty good, but we need to do a little bit better.
So can you talk just real quickly, and then I see that Dasia's got something she wants to jump in with. But so I know that the first round is this blind judging round where we won't know who the students are. And that gets us, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, down to 12 student submissions per state and territory and all of those things. But then we've got to narrow that down to 3 so that we can get to the 200. How does that next phase work? So we get it down to the 12 through these blind submissions. What happens then?
The next phase is going to work. We're going to invite those students to make up to a 60-second video. And it's not them demonstrating their project. It's them explaining their passion for STEM and explaining their project to us. So we're not going to say, show us how this works, tell us the technical. We've already seen that, right? Once you're a finalist, we know you've done extraordinary work. Now we just want to see if you have a passion for STEM, if you can communicate, because STEM and science communication is so important, not just for work, but just how do we solve problems? How do we talk about these things? And then we will have an expert panel, and there is a little tick box on that form that says, I would like to be on the National Selection Committee. We will go through and narrow it down to 3 from every state territory, DC, DODEA, BIE.
And then Dasia, I know you wanted to jump in with something
Yeah. Before
we hit a couple of questions.
Yeah, I had a quick question. First of all, echoing everything that everyone is saying, incredible. Is there a reward for whoever has the most students sign up in their state and territory? That's what I want to know, because I was strong, so that's what I'm wondering.
I mean, Jenny might have something else in mind, but in my mind, the reward is that you're going to have an incredible submission. If you've got a large number, you're going to have a great submission, which means that you're going to have this really great opportunity to show off what Iowa, for example, is capable of.
This is very true. I'm talking trophy, certificate.
We'll have to dig
national press. I mean, if we're seeing 10,000 applicants from Alabama, I think most of we kicked this off on MSNBC. We have a PR firm that is ready to elevate these students and these communities that are doing extraordinary work to highlight their students So we will take that on. And what a great thing to just get like national media attention for like how amazing your kids and teachers are. If we need a trophy, we can do that too.
Yeah, if Jenny has to just buy a trophy, man, she'll send one to Iowa. I tell you what, Deja,
if you want one, we'll send one to you.
If Iowa has the most submissions, I will buy a trophy and send it to you because I believe that it is because of you that they will have that many submissions. All right, so we've got a couple of questions. We might have time for a few of them. Before we do, though, I want to mention that the TIES team has been working really, really hard on a toolkit specifically for you at the STEM ecosystems. Jody and Lauren and Xan and team have been doing that. We're going to drop a link to that here in the chat here shortly, and that will also be in the follow-up. This toolkit has everything that you need to know that we're aware of at this moment. And that is a really important thing, I think, to note, as you might imagine with an initiative this large and with this many partners, this toolkit is going to grow and evolve. So don't print it out. Don't save it as a PDF. Keep it live. You're going to see a little version date on there, and it will continue to have the latest and greatest information. So make sure you go there. You're going to see all of the dates. In that toolkit are the links for volunteering to be a reviewer, are the links for registration, and all sorts of other information that is going to be useful to you. We're going to close here in just a few minutes, but I want to take a few questions. We might not hit them all. If we don't, though, as I promised in the beginning, all questions will get to Jenny, Meg, and team, and they'll be part of that follow-up message that you get after this call. So one that I saw on there that I think is a question that frankly I have myself, Jenny, is Melissa's asking, do students have to have a working prototype or can a non-working model be submitted?
Let's go with non-working. Again, if they can describe why it's important, their vision behind it. Again, not everything works. I'm assuming there are going to be students who come to DC and it worked when they submitted it and it doesn't work when they get there. Again, the window is very short on this. We are aware of that. If we continue with this next year, if this is successful and people want to continue this, we will give you longer, but we're going to be a little more flexible this year. But it can't be theoretical. There does have to be a prototype there.
So not something, you know, what we want to avoid, and this is why Jenny's saying the prototype, so we want to avoid the, you know, bedroom cleaning robot, right? Yeah. Which is always the thing that I feel like third graders always come up with. It is a great idea. I want a bedroom cleaning robot, but it's also not something that's ultra feasible with current technology. So what can actually happen? I think the dream here is that some of these solutions are things that might actually be put into place in partnership with these students in the coming, you know, year or years. And that's something that this sort of platform is going to make possible.
Jeremy, one comment too. You know, one of the elements of this is sustainability. It's a huge word for what's going on, and not only here, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, etc. And the categories lend themselves to this. I think it's important as people encourage kids to put projects forward, they think about its sustainability contribution as well. So it's just another feature to kind of think about when you're thinking about Tech for Good, which is an area we're sponsoring for the festival.
Absolutely. And that's a huge passion I know of Jenny, Carey, and the EXPLR team is that sustainability and addressing those goals. So that's 100% kind of where those themes were selected is how can we make the world a better place, not theoretically, not in 15 years, but actually and right now. And that I think is what the real power of this type of initiative is. I'm going to hit a couple of quick things. I saw somebody asking grades. Again, all of this is in that toolkit, but it's grades 6 through 12 for this year. Is it a tight timeline? I saw some folks talking about that. Yeah, man, it is a real tight timeline. Nobody wants it to be this tight of a timeline, but that's how things work. The hope is that the success of this year's initiative is going to allow for this to happen again on a much longer timeline where students will have more time, more opportunity. States will have more opportunity to really think about how they might want to encourage this at the state level. So stay tuned for version 2. But you know, when we're working in STEM, we work in a iterative process and we can't wait until the timing is perfect. We have to start right now. These are problems that have to be addressed right now. These are opportunities that need to be made available right now. Luciano's asking if students need to pre-register. You don't need to pre-register, Luciano. However, I always encourage folks to go ahead and get that information in, because then if it slips your mind, we all have other jobs, we have other focus areas, you're going to be reminded, you're going to have some other opportunities to be pulled back in. So need to know if pre-registration ends and you have a student who's interested, totally fine, as long as it's within that window that ends in November. But to the extent that you can, make sure to do that. Jenny, I do have one other question. We touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but Tim is asking, I've got some students who made a project that sort of addresses some of these needs back in January, February of 2023. Is that okay?
Absolutely, as long as it follows one of the two paths. We talked about this before, either the scientific method or the engineering design process, and can fit under one of those 6 themes. Absolutely submit it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So last things before we close for today. Number 1, that toolkit, bookmark it, go to it right now. Even if you don't have time to read it, click on the link, save it, set it as your home screen. Realistically, I want this to be something that you look at every single day, because I want incredible representation. My selfish dream for all of this, that has nothing to do with Jenny and Carrie and the team. My selfish dream is that at the end of all of this, we get to say, as an international initiative, the STEM Learning Ecosystems Community of Practice, there are 200 kids in DC, and look, 35 of them were from organizations that are related to STEM ecosystems. Because think about what that power will be for your fundraising, for your partnerships, for your recruitment of students. There's incredible power in this type of national platform. So please make sure that happens. There's also, I saw that Meg dropped their email address in the chat. There's also a Ties STEM Challenge email address that someone will drop in the chat here shortly. Anything comes up, any questions that you have, you can always reach out to us. Jody is checking that constantly, that email address, so you'll get a response very, very quickly. There will be more information coming as things grow and evolve. We really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your very, very busy day to join us. We think this is going to be something really, really special, and we're very excited to be part of it. So thank you, Dasia, Jenny, Meg, for joining us. Paula, of course, for not only joining us, but also your leadership on the advisory council and all of your leadership within the STEM Learning Ecosystems Community of Practice. And we're going to see you all real soon, and I hope to see a lot of your students in Washington, D.C. next year. Thanks, everyone.